Daniel Toscano, Franklin Toscano, LLP, attorneys at law, zoning attorneys down in Boston, 15 Broad Street, Suite 610. Thank you. I represent George Porras. I think everybody has met him over the last couple of weeks, and that's submitted the architect of the property. We're at 14 North Bennet Street, Article 14 North Bennet Street, which is everybody. It's right behind us. It's a rectory right now. The friars have lived there. It's probably about 10 bedrooms there. We want to change the occupancy or the use of it from the rectory to 8 residential units. In addition, we want to expand some unit space into the basement. The basement is already calculating the FAR. It's already existing living space. It's kitchen and some dining space, and also add a 1-story addition for 2 of the units. So it'll be a 5th floor for 2 of the units, unit number 4A and 4B. It's in a multifamily residential sub-district, same as the 49 Charter Street. There are a couple of issues before I get into the entire proposal that maybe I'll touch upon. It might save some time, because I know there's going to be a lot of questions. There may not be. I know we've went over this a number of times. So I'll say this: I think what I want to say is we'll continue our obligation to work with the abutters, and I think we saw this in the last proposal, and I always do. And the clients, I always recommend make sure that you continue to work with the abutters. One of the issues that come up a couple of times over the last couple of meetings at the ZLC, at the abutters meeting, at the NEWRA, was structural plans, structural engineer, civil engineering plans. And I know they're not required for the neighborhood meetings, but we are obligated, if this proposal is approved, we are obligated to put forward a structural engineer team, which we already have a structural engineer team in place, but we're not required right now to have structural engineering plans. I know it's come up a couple of times, and I just kind of want to address it early, but we will. We have a team in place, and we're obligated to do it. We're required to do something. I'm going to get through the proposal, and then I'm happy to answer any questions.
No, I'm
okay?
just asking if you're required to actually propose to actually send us the slide deck. The slide deck.
Want a copy of the slides?
Yes.
If you send your email, pass up your email, I'll be more than happy to email you the plan.
Let's let him get through the presentation and then we'll do questions.
So we will continue to work with the neighborhood, and even though we don't have structural engineering plans, that's really something that's done after the zoning code, the ZBA. And we can also put together a construction management plan that we can bring back to the neighborhood if this project is approved and go forward. So everybody's informed as to what's going on when the project is moving forward. A couple other issues was the fire department and sprinkling the building, and we have one stairwell. There's an existing stairwell. We're renovating the entire building. It's come up a number of times, and we are meeting code. We have no building code violations. This has been assigned to a plans examiner at ISD. They will vet the plans again once we submit construction plans, and they'll review it for any building code violations. We do not have any building code violations, and we are meeting the fire code. Even though we have one means of egress, that's all we're required to have based on the fire protection measures that we're putting in this particular building. So once again, I just wanted to bring it up. I know it's come up before. In the last issue that's come up before I wanted to address is the configuration of this property are really on the ground. It's kind of almost like a maze, and I know Isaac has been through it, and Tom has been through it. There's shared heating system and an electrical system that the church uses. We are obligated, and we're going to continue with our obligation to, if we move forward with the development, we have to separate that. So right now, everything's on really one system. So if we shut down our heat, I believe that the church heat may get shut down, but we're obligated to separate that system, and we will do so. I mean, we're required to do it. So, so those are issues that's come up that right now it's not necessarily relevant for our zoning purposes. It will be at some point if the proposal goes forward, but it's come up a number of times, and we spent a lot of time on it. But I just wanted to address those issues before I go through the proposal. A couple other issues that come up that I want to address real quick, and I'll get to the proposals. A couple issues that really aren't relevant to us. It's really there's been a lot of questions of, the friars, why are they selling the property, what they're selling it for, and how come we didn't get notice of the seal. You know, it's, Mr. Corus worked through a broker that worked for the Friars, that they were accepting bids, they were accepting appointments to walk through the property, and if you wanted to give a bid on the property, you can. Those questions, the answers to those questions, we really don't know the answers to them, and it really kind of is not necessarily, I don't want to say not necessarily that concern, not really relevant to Mr. Corus. He doesn't know the answer. Why the Friars selling the property at this time? You know, why didn't they send out notice to other neighbors and for them to give an opportunity to buy it? But, so, I mean, it's part of real estate. I mean, the real estate agents, they go out, they sell their property. And so I think there was one more issue, if you don't mind, I just want to touch on it, is, I think the notification was. So with that said, so we talked about the notification as to who got notice of the seal. There really wasn't any control of Mr. Corus. But, so with that said, so hopefully we can avoid some of those questions, because I don't have the answer to it, other than the fact the first three issues I mentioned will continue to meet our obligations to the community about making sure the community is well aware of what we're doing with the property. So moving forward, I think everybody's a little familiar with the property. So here we are right here. This is the Nazaro Center playground. This is the Nazaro Center where we are, and this is I guess the existing Friary building that's going to remain. So this is our property, and as it's outlined here, that's our property line. There's a little location map, little satellite. So that's the front of the property. I think everybody's familiar with it. So moving forward, another visual, Nazaro Center where we are, playground, this building will remain. And here we are, it's a 44-foot building right here. So this is a perfect view of us. So what we want to do is change the occupancy from, or really change the use from directory to the 8 residential units. By doing so, we file an application, a long form application with the City of Boston, and we encountered some violations. Similar violations that we really encounter every time we make some changes, as we've just seen. One of the violations, as we're going to see, is an FAR, floor area ratio. Based on Isaac's calculation of the existing footprint, all the living space that's there, we are currently at 3.68. So as we know, in the North End, it's a multifamily residential sub-district, it's 3. So we're already exceeding that 3.0. By adding the 1-story addition, because we're not talking about the space that we're going to utilize in the basement, because that's already calculated living space. So we don't need to add that again. So we're going to go to 3.9. So we're adding about 1,000 to 1,100 square. The proposal is to add 1,000 to 1,100 square feet to the roof. Another violation would be parking violation. Parking violation, we need 1 parking spot per residential unit. Now, there's nothing in the zoning code that states that has a rectory in there and how much parking is required for a rectory. The only thing that's in the code is there's dormitories, there's other housing, different housing components that need a half a parking spot, 0.5 spots per bedroom.
Well, isn't a rectory, it's sort of like a dormitory?
There's no definition. Yes, there was 10. From what we're told, there's 10 bedrooms. So if we calculate 10 bedrooms, there's 5 parking spots. That
You can't get 1 parking spot on North Bennet Street.
We're not. That's why we're in violation. So we're not proposing any parking on this site because there is no parking. There's no parking. So although I'm going to go on record and say we need 8 residential parking spaces for this particular proposal, but I think it's much less because I don't know what was calculated for the existing directory. We do have a rear yard setback, so rear yard, we have to be 12 feet from the rear yard for the next property. And as I go to I'm going to go to the site plan here. So this is this is a better photo here. So right now we're right up on our lot land. So we're in violation right now. So we're at 0. We have to be at 12, but it's an existing building. We're already taking up a spot. We are no violation here, as I believe this is about 18 feet. So no violation here, but in this section here, we're in violation of the rear yard. The other violation we encountered was a roof structure. And it's something that's come up in this neighborhood many, many times. Once you change the structure of the roof, you get a roof structure violation pursuant to 5418. So by adding the one-story addition, we will be in violation of the roof structure. So we need a variance for roof structure. Open space is another variance that you see often here, but we do need the open space. We've created some decks in the back per unit and some open space for the rooftop decks, private exclusive for the unit number 4A and 4B. Going through the floor plans, what we have here overall, we have 4 2-bedroom, 2-bath. I think one of them is a 2-bedroom, 2.5 bath, and we have 4 1-bedroom units. The units are good side. The units on the right-hand side are units. Let's go here. Unit 2B and 3B are about 585 square feet. The units 2A and 3A are about 685 square feet. Unit 1A and 1B, they're duplex units, ground level and below ground. They're approximately, I think they're about 1,100 to 1,300 square feet, 2-bedroom, 2-bath. And you have living space on the first floor, and then going back here is the basement level, 2-bedroom, 2-bath. Moving forward to unit 4A and 4B, proposal is a duplex unit, probably around 1,100 to 1,300 square feet, 2 bedrooms, 2 baths. I believe one of them has a half a bath. I think it might be 4A. 4A is a little bit bigger, I believe. So, and this is the addition. The addition here, this is our property line. We're up front here. We're set back almost 6 feet here from the property. We've done this for a number of reasons. One, we try to set it back to not interfere with the current facade that's current there. 2, to eliminate some privacy issues for any abutters. So we set it back 6 feet there, and to eliminate possible any shadows. And as we move forward to the roof decks, which are exclusive to unit 4A and 4B, exit your front open area and go up the exterior stairwell that takes you right to the private roof decks. So these aren't common roof decks. We got some condensers that may or may not remain there, but right now we put them there. And the roof decks here are set back an additional 6 feet. So they would be 12 feet from our property line. So moving forward, you see a front elevation here with our, this is 4A and 4B, the exterior stairwell, 55 feet is the base of the roof deck, and the railings go a little bit higher, but they're not calculated into the height. In terms of the material of the roof deck, the railings, right now, we're just traditional proposal, but if we move forward and get approval, we have to go through a design review. And the design review, BPDA will tell us really what the materials, colors, what we're gonna be putting there, but it's definitely not gonna be solid, because you put a solid railing there, we understand that people, the perception is you're higher than 55 feet. Really just a building sectional here.
That's an important view. Would you show the
All right,
addition?
building sectional here. This is below ground, ground here. First floor, second floor. This is our interior stairwell, which is remaining. Third and fourth floor, and then the addition here. And this is the front of the property as we're set back a little. This is the facade of the building. And we're going up, like I said, 55 feet. The building next to us is probably about 65 feet, so we're certainly not going any higher. So we'll be below the building which would be this building that abuts the Nazaro's playground. Some lines of sight that Isaac had put together and so we kind of get a city view so everybody can see in relation to what's in the area. So this would be the existing building. This is the blue structure, which we'll be working with the Friary. I understand that the residents over at Columbus condos don't like that view. I don't blame them, but we're committed, and I've talked to George, and George has made a commitment that he'll we move forward, talk to the Friary to see if we can somehow change that appearance, redesign it, but we want to be able to do it without creating any violations. So, and this would be Columbus. This is another view. So this is your current blue structure. This is our 55-foot height property. This is 12 North Bennet Street. And see how we're set back here about 6 feet, and our decks are set back an additional 6 feet. And another city view. Shadow study.
Elevator?
Elevated, no, I'm just gonna walk up. So shadow study, I'm gonna turn it over to Isaac. I think he can explain the shadow study a little bit better. So, Isaac,
Sure.
go.
Okay, so I'll try to go through the basics of this, and as always, if anyone has any questions about it or would like some more detail, please feel free to ask me. But the typical mode of working through a sun study like this is to pick the 3 key dates of the year and look at 3 times of day for each one of those dates. So we look at the winter solstice, the summer solstice, and one of the equinox dates. In this case, we've looked at the autumn equinox, if it matters to anyone. And then the time of days that we look at are 9 a.m., 12 noon, and 4 p.m. And the reason we look at those is because they give us the broadest sample of changing sunlight throughout the course of the year. We stop at 4 p.m. because in the winter, of course, the sun is down with about 4:10 on the solstice. So to try to rectify those times across the year, we stop it at 4 p.m. We have also, though, upon request, looked at specific dates that differ from those and gone a little bit later to show you the effects of those. So in short, what we'll see is in the winter time zones, when we're looking at those, just about any time when we're dealing with narrow streets and the sun angles are relatively low. So anytime we're dealing with narrow streets and buildings that are about 3 stories or more, a lot of the streets are already in shade. And so you'll see that pretty much all times of day there's deep shadow cast on the streets just from the height of typical buildings. So our addition to the top of this really doesn't impact that at all. Where we expect to see some of the most significant shading issues would be in the summertime. And this is one of the reasons that we've set back the front of the building from the historic facade, is because if you see right in here, where's our summer? Right there. So this little line right there is the extent of the shadow at noon from our building, which being 6 foot back is cast directly on our own roof of the building. So there's no impact from that. What you'll see at earlier times of day, here in the morning, of course we're coming from the east, and any new shadows being cast onto the existing side wall of the taller building. And then later in the day, what's happening is as the sun starts to go past about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the sun angle is dropping, the sun is coming from the west, and the taller building to the west is creating an enveloping shadow, which is mitigating any additional shadow that our building would have otherwise cast. And the equinox positions are, sort of in the middle of those 2 scenarios. So in summary, there's really not significant impact coming from this addition just because of the height of the building adjacent and the sun angle. So if there's any questions about that, I'd be happy to answer them.
At our first meeting, when we reviewed this shadow study, I specifically asked if you could quantify what you meant by not really very significant, and you said you'd be happy to do that. I was at the last meeting, didn't get that information. Can you tell us what not very significant means? Is that 2%? Is that 20%? What is the percentage of light that people will lose in their homes on that side of the building?
So that takes a lot more detailed calculations to be able to do that, and we can run that, but it's a very lengthy process to get into that. And again, I think what we're seeing from this is that type of detailed analysis would not be particularly fruitful. I mean, I'm not going to say I won't run it, but
You or the neighbors?
I think what the answer would be, and what we said at the neighborhood council, is that there is no impact on across the street to Columbus condos. So that's why there's really no need to really run additional testing, because based on what we've done here, and I think moving forward, the next slide we have here, August 8th, there was no impacts, any additional shadows on Columbus as a result of this one-story addition.
I have a statement, a question, and a recommendation. Attorney
You're a
Tusk.
butter, right?
Oh, yeah, I'm Alan Snyder. I face the Priory. I'm less concerned about the shading as opposed to the privacy, but I think that what we saw today is Boston being shut down by traffic. Someone couldn't get from Logan Airport to Mass General in 2 hours. Everyone in this neighborhood saw the issues with the conversion of North Bennet School. So that's the statement. The question is, and you can answer it at the end, what is the cost for the structural summary? I think we've been presented a rose garden and not a peace garden of everything is wonderful and we're going to do this and do that. Well, my suggestion is that you come back to this committee, to the neighborhood, when you've got all these variances approved and the structural studies is done. I'm very concerned with the church and all the issues there. It's like all this stuff, you're gonna do this and do that, but you don't wanna put your own money up. And I think you guys need to put your money up if you wanna do this. And my concern is that, you know, that you're not gonna do this, or you're gonna get these variances approved because it gets a rubber stamp, and then there'll be some wiggle room for the structural study. So, you know, if you know what it's gonna cost, tell us, but my recommendation is come back when you've gone through the ZBA and got these issues resolved, because we don't know what's gonna happen. And I think it was fair, particularly the church, not us.
We're
Told me that, and I don't want to hear, could have,
We're happy to, absolutely, 100%
Danny,
happy.
I don't want to hear could have, would have, should have. I want to hear from George, what is it going to cost to do the structural study? If you don't know, let us know later.
The structural study could cost anywhere between, you don't know until you kind of get into it.
Well-
It could be anywhere between 10, 15 to 30, $40,000. It all depends on what you need to do. So but at the end of the day, whatever's required, so if we want to build this, an engineer is going to come in, and they're not going to sugarcoat anything because they're worried about their liability, going to jail, all that kind of, I'm worried about that, right? I mean, I think everybody here is worried about that. There's a significant amount of liability associated with doing this project, if anybody was ever get hurt or anything like that. So what we would do in this case, once we know that we have a project that can move forward, is we present this design to the engineers. They go through, do all the studies that are required, whether it's, you know, it's all the way from soil tests to the building's structural strength, to what we're gonna add to it on top, and so on and so forth. They present us with the plan in order to effectuate that. So once that happens, then we know exactly what it costs. We're not gonna do something to cut corners, because that's opening yourself up to the biggest liability that you could. And
Hello,
I'm not
I'm a
gonna
lawyer, and I want to know who's vetting your subcontracts. I already said, I'm Susan Mulholland.
No,
I've
okay,
lived
but,
here for
okay,
30
what we
years.
do here, what we do here is we go a butters first. Are you in a butter? No, so
That's
we'll get to your questions,
Yes,
I
no,
promise,
that's
but a butters
So-
first,
I mean,
please.
in conclusion, we're
I
happy to
also
do that.
have the
We're-
responsibility of informing neighborhood people of what they don't necessarily know.
I promise we'll get right to you,
And
but
we're-
let's just let the butters go first and then we let everybody else go.
So look, I mean, we're happy to inform you of what we're doing, you know, and I think that would be part of kind of the construction plan that we were talking about, and so on and so forth. You know, honestly, guys, I mean, you know, this is something that, you know, that we do, and it's something that is our, we're not gonna put ourselves in
George,
jeopardy
you're
to
not
your
willing to
point,
put
so.
your money in the game here, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
we've already put a significant amount of money in.
Okay, well, then put
So-
some more in and make sure
For-
that the church is gonna be okay.
For zoning,
Indemnification.
for zoning,
Hold on,
okay.
just one second. The church is gonna be fine. I mean, right now, these
That's the
catacombs
problem.
that we talked about, well, the church is the one that subdivided the property, right? So if you go down there right now, there are those catacombs, they're essentially, all it is there's two buildings that should share a wall, a dividing wall that is not there, that we will then put in place. It will be structurally sound, it will be safe, it will be secure. Other than that, in essence, what it would become is a party wall that you see very commonly in Boston through brownstones, row houses, and so on and so forth. That's essentially what it will be. The church will not be damaged in any way, and all that kind of stuff. The only thing that will be is the heating system, which will, again, that needs to be addressed. It will be addressed by engineers, how it is to be separated and so on and so forth. Currently, right now, there are two separate systems in that patio area. One is for the rectory, one is for the church. They're both fed off the same gas line. So we are going to be able to separate that so they will be independent systems. If the church wishes to leave their system there, which I think right now they do, then it will be left there. They have access through an easement in order to service it if they need to, as do we. So if they want to move it at some point and relocate it within the confines of the church or the church property, they're free to do that. But it's not going to impact the building, the church, or anything like that. These are things that will be put in place in order for us to do that.
Tom?
As a butter, I am an abutter. I am a parishioner at St. Leonard's, and I would like to be heard. And I speak on my behalf, but I know that there are people in this room that I speak on their behalf too. It's going to take me about 7 minutes. I'm not trying to, but I'm talking about hundreds of people. Angela Aquilino has a petition that the parishioners have already about 150 signatures, and that was only started on Sunday evening. So I would like to speak at some point. I think certain things aren't being addressed. My standing is a 45-year parishioner at St. Leonard's. My daughter was baptized there, confirmed there, first communion there, and I'm going to be buried there unless hopefully not in the really near future, but unless it's St. Leonard's Basilica condos at that time. So we do have to be aware of something. I'm concerned about the rear of the building. I wanted to explain why. If you look at the plot plan that I give you, in the yellow area is the main rectory building. Behind that, in an orange square, this is the courtyard that's actually part ownership from the rectory, but the church, St. Leonard's Parish, has significant rights on that, and I'll explain. You have to understand the participants of what's going on here, ecclesiastical and jurisdictional. I'll be brief. The province of the Immaculate Conception, which is an order of Franciscan Friars Minor, their head is based in New York City, but they stretch from New York City to Toronto, Canada. They own the rectory. The St. Christopher Friary is the same order of the Franciscans, but they have their own executive director for that building, St. Christopher Friary, to the right of the rectory building. That is basically a retirement home, assisted living. Maybe there's 1 or 2 men in there that it would be a skilled nursing facility, but they have an executive director who has no say over the sale of the rectory. We're talking about the province that's based out of New York, and as the gentleman said, is using a real estate broker, so a lot of information is not necessarily shared. Not intentionally, because of the process that's being used. Now there's another actor in this, and that's the Archdiocese of Boston that actually holds a deed of title to St. Leonard's Church, the Peace Garden as well, and the easement that Attorney Toscano has mentioned. It's called the courtyard easement, and I'll explain why I consider this to be the most important aspect of this project. In addition to the Archdiocese of Boston, we have the parish of St. Leonard's that it has its own little jurisdiction. and that is headed by Father Antonio Naduani, who's about to leave, literally by January 4th or 5th. So it's really the parishioners who have the standing in trying to explain this at the moment. The building, as on this plot plan, there is a courtyard that is only accessible through one door that's going to be part of the rectory owned by the Archdiocese of Boston, and at some point there'll be the Berlin Wall. That won't be accessible, but there is the possibility that the condominium project will put their own stairway in or a means of getting to that courtyard. And that's of grave concern. Why? Because that courtyard, the adjacent buildings, on one side is the retirement house that has 11 windows, and you can literally, when the night that we had the abutters meeting, I could look through the window of that rectory room and I could see that there was a plant in the window. There are going to be protruding balconies from the rear of the building, and this is what the current petition going around, and I'd like to read it. I'll be very brief if I can. Basically, the parishioners calling for a thoughtful and a thorough study of the impacts of the currently planned development upon the continuity and integrity of the liturgical celebrations within the church itself, and upon the privacy and dignity of the retired priests and brothers housed within the adjacent St. Christopher Friary. Significant alterations is now anticipated, including protruding balconies and ground-level access of condominium owners to a courtyard below the sacristy windows, and I will talk about those windows momentarily, will create a significant visual and noise intrusions into the tranquility of an existing sacred space, and are concerned to the dignity of the elderly religious who have devoted their lives to generations of the people of our neighborhood and worshipers from around the world. And finally, we were calling upon our civil and religious authorities, because this is a political problem. This isn't just a development problem, political. And when I say political, I mean religious, the ecclesiastical as well. So, to be given sufficient opportunity to consider the irreparable consequences of the currently planned development, which has been submitted for review at the height of the holiday season, when time and availability of parties of interest are severely limited. And all of us are coming and going throughout this season. And this we're talking about tonight is an icon of our neighborhood. You don't have to be Roman Catholic to appreciate the significance of the building and the complex. That is an open sanctuary that people from all around the world can go into the Peace Garden, and they can gather inside the church. They will not be prohibited from entering. Imagine in the retirement house, and I'm not making fun of the development team. They're doing what they need to do, because part of this is developing a building, and there's probably a provincial down in Manhattan who really doesn't understand. But we have a courtyard there, and there are 2 sacristy windows. And I'm gonna finish soon, please. I feel like I'm speaking for a couple hundred people, so if you don't mind. Behind the altar of the church is the sacristy. The sacristy is a holy place. It's where the celebrants of the liturgical ceremonies gown up. They put on their vestments. Sometimes the Holy Eucharist is put there after the Holy Thursday services, when the rest of the church is stripped of its adornments. The holy oils are there. The chalices and the ciboriums are there, are held in storage there. So we have a situation where literally the men, and hopefully one day some of us want the women, who are going to be processing in from that sacristy, are going to be able to, not worried about who's barbecuing the shrimp on the other side of that open window, 2 windows, who's drinking the bud out on the deck. And I know I'm not making fun of the team, but these are the things that go through my mind. So, there's noise, and how do you prepare for religious ceremony if you're looking out and somebody's sunbathing? or somebody is just having a conversation. And the men who were in the friary with those 11 windows, they're looking out, and I'm not being funny, it's such an intrusion. As close as Bob Skoll is to me, is going to be as close as some of the men are going to be looking out the window and the people in the balcony. So we've got this, well, everybody's worried about the front of the building too, and I'm not denigrating the people from the courts, but the court condos, but this is the most important issue for us. And you cannot possibly think about putting in luxury condos, and let us all be honest, those top condos are going to be $1.8 million a year. But our zoning code talks about substantial hardship on a property. Well, what about a substantial hardship on our property, our sacred space, our liturgical gardens? And that is what I am concerned about. And it's not that I don't care about the people going up, but we are North Enders. We're not all Roman Catholics. We don't know how long that church is going to be there. And the reality is that this plan is a warren of mazes and sub-corridors and rooms off of rooms. And the reason is because it's a religious community, and 100 years ago, nobody ever imagined there'd be such a thing as gentrification or subdivisions or zoning boards. What people thought is that they lived communally. And this, we now have that template, so to speak, tonight. And this really, there's not enough opportunity to vet this project. Thank you.
Ellen is in the bottom.
Me?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Go.
Somebody else?
So
I'm happy to hear.
the process is not complete.
Okay,
So-
so
you wanna
we are
finish
running
your
out of time, so
Oh,
let's let Ellen
No,
go.
I can respond just real quick, and, I mean, we heard Tom, we spoke to Tom a number of occasions, and we appreciate your concerns.
And you've been a gentleman, Dan. You have.
Thank you, and we are looking at this, so in the back, there are some, to meet our open space requirement, we don't have a violation, we need 100 square feet per open, 100 square feet of open space per unit, 800 square feet of open space. We do have, we meet that requirement. The decks in the back for units 2, 3, 2A, 2B, 3A, 3B. When you look at them, they're about 40 to 50 square feet of open space. We're gonna take a look at them. I spoke with George today about them, and spoke to Isaac, see if we can shrink those a little bit, and really not, try to make them not where you can put a table out there or anything. So, but we'd like to meet our open space requirements, but we
We're
will.
about out of time.
We are
So
gonna
Ellen
take a
has
look at those
question,
and see if we make some adjustments.
And then we're gonna have to have a motion, Ellen.
I just had a statement, but I
Okay,
have a
you're
letter,
right.
and I don't have to read the whole thing. But we, abutters from Columbus Court, are in the front of the proposed development, and we want to have common cause with the parishioners of St. Leonard's, and also for the friars who have no voice in this because their superiors in New York are selling the building next door and they have no say in it. So, Tom, I so appreciate your leadership on this and Angela's petition. But we who are in the front of the building also have issues. And we only got these proposals about 2 weeks ago, right before Thanksgiving. So we first asked Dan and the developers if we could work with them and have a delay so that we could figure out how to deal with this idea of having decks directly facing us for the first time, and these roof decks, and also the concerns about structure and fire. And instead of delaying, you told me, oh no, we're gonna go forward, we'll get the votes. So I wonder how our community has a voice in this process. We don't feel that there's been time to work with you, to be honest. And I'd like to raise what the issues are. We totally respect the right of the Franciscan friars to sell this property. That's not a question that's been raised, Dan. But what we're saying, and what Tom is saying, is that the officials in New York of this order may not be noticing the impact it's having historically, culturally, and personally on the very people that they serve. And I wanted to add, I have a packet here, some of you got it. The Massachusetts Cultural Resource Information System has this area registered as a historic area. And if you look at the pink tab, you'll see the map, and it's the parish center, which is now a condo, the church, the rectory, the friary, and the peace garden. And they're all considered a historic area for a good reason. They are formerly sacred space. They've slowly, and of course our building was also a Catholic high school. We weren't part of this historic pattern. But it's very important to realize this is, as Tom said, an iconic part of the neighborhood. So just to quickly go through this, so we're not challenging their right, we're challenging their judgment and whether this is something our community can absorb. The privacy of the church and the friary is part of it, and the privacy of us as abutters. We're a 32-unit condo. Our privacy is severely compromised, as some of my neighbors said at the council meeting on Monday night, and the council voted against this project. So I'm urging you also to consider voting against it. We were originally asking you to vote for a delay, but because they would not delay, they would not seek a delay, I think we have no choice but simply to oppose it at this time. And it's based on many things. I'll just add about this, structural challenge. As Tom points out, there's a lot of underground space that's open under this property. In the North End, we've had some buildings collapse. This is not a joke. And so we thought it was a serious issue to get the structural test. And instead of taking it as seriously as we did, we were told at the abutters meeting that adding the new story on top wouldn't be a problem because the materials are light. I'm sorry, that's just not a serious answer to us. And in terms of the fire safety, I'm sorry, having 5 stories and only 1 egress, and the roof decks are not common space, so you can't even go up to the roof if the building's on fire. I mean, maybe you can, but it's not your property. I think this is a really serious set of questions. I know I'm gonna cut it down now.
We're almost, we're out of time, so I think we need to have a motion. Does anyone have a motion on next steps for this?
If you don't mind me
If you
responding.
can.
Alan,
Dan, you talked a
5 minutes.
gazillion. I think that we have time for the motion.
All right, so I'm gonna just finish up and conclude. Thank you, though. Alan, I appreciate it. It's a pleasure working with you. You're being kind, but in terms of the process, I think we need to, and the reason why we're not saying no, we're certainly not gonna delay it. We're gonna go forward. We're gonna ram this project down, everybody. So absolutely not. I rest on my reputation. I continue to work with the abutters. I think we've seen this in the last project. We have reached out already to numerous residents over at the Columbus Condo Association.
Have you reached out to the main abutter, the province of the Immaculate Conception, that owns St. Christopher's Friary?
We need to call for a question.
We've reached out, so we're gonna continue with our obligation, meet with the abutters. We're far from getting a zoning board of appeals hearing date. We're several months away, but in order to get one, we need to complete the process.
Can you meet with the abutters and come back next
Absolutely,
month?
we're reaching out. We've been in contact, absolutely.
That work?
We're happy to meet with you, but here's what we want. We want you to not have this next story up added, and we're asking you to not have the roof decks. I think that would solve almost all the problems. The structure, within the structure, you could have a beautiful 6-condo development. I think everyone would respect that. That would be in keeping with the neighborhood. But once you add the new story and the roof decks, it changes the whole dynamic and culture of your project. And frankly, that's where the problems are.
If you allow us to,
Mary.
I move that we vote to either support or oppose this project, which is presented.
Seconded.
I'm okay with moving for a vote, but it would be nice if George had an opportunity as the petitioner and the owner probably to respond to the comments. I mean, there was a lot of
We've
comments.
been responding all night.
Yeah.
This is the 3rd night. It's the same story. I'm sorry. You know, there's no
All right.
information.
That's the problem, and that's where we're at. Well, everybody's voting, just so you know.
Well, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.